Welcome to the Haunted Hacker Podcast, Gerald Part 2 is what we'll call this one. A little bit of news to catch up on. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. And January, I'll be speaking for ICE, as well as a CISO group in South Africa. Also, Predict is coming up for TechStrong TV. I'll be speaking with Donovan and Charlene on predictions for 2022, which is what we will start covering in this podcast as well. So I want to welcome Gerald. Gerald, thanks for being on the show again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and we always have some great conversations.
Yeah, thank you. I really do enjoy talking with you, like on and off screen. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's always flattering when you get asked back to somewhere because it basically means you didn't screw it up the first time.
Right. And we always have great conversations. I've dropped in on a couple of your podcasts and a couple of your shows. And I got to say, like, your show has evolved into something, organic, I think. I really like it, and I like the format. Hopefully one of these days, the Haunted Hacker Podcast will become more of a professional podcast and less of a, sit down and just chit chat type deal. But I enjoy it. I enjoy having people like you on and with your depth of experience. So let's just jump right in. 2021 has been a crazy year, both for pandemic, cybersecurity, and 0 days, and just the absurdity that's going on in cybersecurity. How was your year? How did you view the year, and what kind of effect did it have on you?
Yeah, I thought it was a good year. People had kind of settled into remote workforce, digital transformation. I feel like budgets had gotten allocated for proper VPN and stuff like that. So kind of at the macro level of corporate enterprise, I felt like we were at least in a better place. I did find that some of the bigger impacting events of 2021 didn't have as much impact, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, I switched jobs in April of 21, and I worked at a $5 billion academic medical center as a cybersecurity architect. So I had my hands on a lot of stuff, and I was aware of it's a pretty big target. And now I work at a mid-sized manufacturing company, still a hot target for ransomware activities, but not as juicy a target. So just to kind of preface my perceptions. But if you remember, right at the end of 2020, December was SolarWinds, and we were coming right into 2021 with like how deep are they involved, like how bad is the breach, and it really, I never really felt like anyone was like burnt, to use a kind of a punny word, by SolarWinds. And then Kaseya happened in July of 21, and it was like SolarWinds 2 kind of, and it still didn't really. So I don't know if Kaseya, for example, had great IR and were able to remediate effectively, or if, the impact wasn't as great as the potential for the impact. GRC people, we always qualify the impact as like the worst case scenario so we can throttle down from that. So, those two events I felt were really pivotal, right? We had Colonial Pipeline, but I feel like ransomware has become almost commodity, a commodity attack. And the SolarWinds and the Kaseya were kind of paradigm shifting because they were going upstream of the supply chain and getting into the MSPs, which gives them way more proliferation and obviously admin access everywhere. So I just thought the impact would be substantially greater than it was. But who knows? Maybe stories were covered up. Maybe the government actually intercepted and got heavily involved. So I'm not sure. What do you think?
Looking back at Colonial, I think that, the government definitely got involved. They went after the cryptocurrency of the group, which I thought was really interesting. It's kind of eye-opening. They were like the first to actually, the FBI go after and actually grab money from. But to me, Colonial Pipeline wasn't that shocking. I think the FBI actions was more shocking. And it kind of made me think, about cryptocurrency and the blockchain. Is it really that secure? It kind of put some doubt in my head about, the stability of blockchain and, the transactions, because everybody's looking for that cryptocurrency that provides that, I guess, anonymous cover, so that you don't have the risk involved with purchases, right? At least that's what it is on the underground. And I think that kind of uncovered a little bit of insecurity. When you look at Tor and how the FBI got into Tor networks and started building exit nodes, because that's where the traffic's decrypted, everybody started to second guess, should I be on Tor? Should I be doing this on Tor? And now you have the same with blockchain. And I think that was kind of the highlight. The actual exploit itself and the, I guess, the side effect of it really wasn't earth breaking to me, because I mean, it wasn't, the systems that they broke into weren't even really connected to the pipeline. And
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of media hype behind Colonial.
There was, and I honestly always felt that the federal government intervened just because of the social response to the event of people filling bags with gasoline and the run on gas stations and stuff. Like, we can't have civil unrest. Like, that's like, if Colonial Pipeline goes down for a week and they reduce production, like, that sucks for them and probably has a couple pennies on the gallon impact to us, but it's acceptable. Civil unrest is completely unacceptable. And I felt like once people started freaking out is when the government said, like, all right, we need to intervene immediately and get this under control. I also agree with you. I found it stunning that they were able to recover the funds. And the way it was reported that I heard was that the crypto wallet was on U.S. systems, a server in the U.S., which is why they had jurisdiction to go get it. But how can you be? I mean, it wasn't like a crazy clever hack. I mean, it was just like, punching right through RDP or some type of, non-MFA VPN. But like, how can you be clever enough to like attack that and get the ransom and then be so stupid to leave it in a US controlled server? Like, it just seems crazy, And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, DarkSide was the threat actor group that ran that, and then they immediately disbanded right afterwards. So, they definitely felt the heat, if you will.
Yeah, and the funny thing about DarkSide is they seem to be the type of group that comes and goes, right? They'll disband and run off for a little bit and then regroup. And I was talking to an analyst, and she was telling me something about the exploits that they develop and the way that they go about it. And every once in a while, you'll see a new exploit that looks like something DarkSide would produce, and it has been. So it's almost like once a year they regroup and reform and get everything together and then launch another attack. They're not like I guess some of the shops down, especially in India, the ransomware groups down there that are constantly running and gunning. But I think ransomware, like everybody thinks, I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And as long as people don't patch their systems, ransomware is going to be an issue. And I think that was a key takeaway for me this year, was the fact that, going through all these ransomware events and doing an incident response and looking at how they got hit and why they got hit, definitely opened my eyes to the fact that we're still not doing a good job with patching. And I don't know what it's going to take to get to the point where the industry steps back and goes, we don't necessarily need AI. AI is not going to save us. What we really need is to do the fundamentals and start patching.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could remember who the speaker was. Maybe it was Chris Sanders or someone like that. Or it was one of the notable InfoSec celebrities who are obviously great practitioners, who said, like, it was at a talk and he said it's 2019 or it's 2020, and I honestly could not imagine in 2000 that I would be up here telling you that we need to get patching. Like we need to be patching. Like, I thought we would have solved this by now. But patching, it's easy. It's like chess, right? Or it's easy to wrap your head around, but it's very difficult to do well. Just like asset inventory, frankly. And with patching, a vulnerability management program, we have this conflict with IT, and this is my go-to example of how InfoSec is not the same as IT. It's just the business they've invested X amount into this machine, and I don't care if it runs Windows XP. We're not gonna patch it. Although the funniest thing is, Mike, it always blows my mind, is like how much money a business will spend post breach. It's like 4x of what they would have spent pre-breach, but you can never make the business case pre-breach. But the second you have a real situation, it's like, oh, we've got to hire everybody and buy every tool, and it's just I don't know. Like, I guess having a near miss where first stage gets downloaded and executed, but the payload doesn't come down is like one of the best things that can happen to a infosec officer practitioner, because you get all the benefit of the bad event without any of the ramifications of cleaning it up.
Yeah, I remember when I first started in cybersecurity, and return on investment (ROI) was a big argument with the C level and with IT. Um, and I still think we're stuck in that same mentality of I don't want to spend a bunch of money that I don't have to spend because we're not a target right now. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, after the cleanup, then they're willing to spend the whole budget on security. But I think that a lot of companies spend that money in the wrong way. I think it's important to defend your systems and defend your networks. But I mean, some of the ways that the attackers are getting in are not complex, and literally it just takes a simple patch. Like I had one incident that I did some independent consulting on, and the guy, I asked him, I said, is this Exchange server up to date? Well, we bought it in 2019. I said, well, yeah, of course, but have you been patching? Well, it's fairly new. We bought it in 2019. I said, so what you're telling me is you haven't patched it? No. I mean, it's fairly new. They kept going over and over about it's fairly new. And I had to explain to them that you have to keep up with these patches. Like the Exchange server is one of the easiest ways to get in. And so the end of this year, most of the incidents that I saw was through proxy shell on the Exchange server. And it was just a mass majority of the ones that I saw and people talked to me about that, the Exchange server was the primary target. But let's talk about Log4j for a second. I was, when Log4j hit, there was a big panic, and, working for a service provider, we were trying to rush and make sure that everything was covered. We were covered. We had a platform that was vulnerable, but fortunately, the version we had was not vulnerable. So we were pretty much in the clear. But there were companies out there that were literally on fire with this whole Log4j. But I haven't seen a huge impact from Log4j yet. Have you?
No, I haven't seen any. I know I've talked to a couple, anonymous sources who are responsible for larger organizations, and they had a couple of systems pop the first couple of days, like that Monday, Tuesday. Minimal impact, compromised system. They were able to take it offline, get it sorted out, get it back. But I haven't heard of anything really. And I actually saw Alyssa Miller on Twitter posit about this last week, and so I don't want to claim this as my own thoughts, but give citation properly. But it was something around the lines of like, is it that the vulnerability is everywhere, but the people who are exploiting it don't know how to take advantage of it? Or is it that it's, kind of these situations where nation state threat actors are had to get a few days to get their tools in order and everything, and then they're exploiting and getting footholds, and then establishing like long, deep sea beacons for C2 persistence, like 6-month beaconing, so they can root until the focus, the Eye of Sauron, goes away from staring at the Log4j stuff, and then begin to unpack whatever goodies they want to bring in there. And I feel like it could be a mixed bag of that. I don't know what permissions Log4j or that Apache service executes under. So if it's not, if it's an unprivileged one, you get it, but then what do you do? Like your code isn't going to really run, and you're just making a lot of noise. So, I don't think Log4j is done. I saw Black Hill's webcast talking about this, about how this is more of a category of vulnerability almost, where like this is the first, but there's going to be other ones of these logging systems that are pushing what you put in all the way through to potentially, vulnerable systems like that. So, I guess I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been a big news splash story. I really thought a financial services client, like a bank or something, would get hit. A crypto exchange was really right where I thought that they would go initially, in order to, basically exfiltrate a bunch of, or, move a bunch of money while everybody was still trying to figure out what was going on. But, I guess time will tell. I am glad. Our industry has like really recently responded in a very noisy fashion, in a very like, whoa, and which is good because it gets a lot of attention. I know Log4j was on CNBC and CNN and Fox News and everything like by Wednesday, Thursday of the week. So it was gaining traction in a mainstream way, which is good because you need the business to like reallocate resources, not just money, but like people need to stop what they're doing, understand deadlines will be missed because this is a new priority. And I'm just glad it's like another positive thing that I see in the business world of the way that the business is now accepting and understanding that cybersecurity is a fluid, dynamic thing that like project timelines sometimes don't matter.
Right. And I think that another key factor too was the government's involvement with Log4j and some of the government federal groups. I know CISA put out a scanning tool for Log4j, which I thought it came out very quick too. It wasn't like it took forever. And it's really effective tool. Like I ran that a couple times on different servers. I set up a vulnerable server and I mean, it worked great. But I think that we're seeing a lot more government interaction with the community and a lot more effective communication between the government and cybersecurity, which I'm pretty excited about. I know that they're trying to pass laws and bills about, people identifying themselves as being breached within 72 hours. We all know that's not quick. We all know that's not quick enough, but at least they're making strides in the right direction. And I think with the next year, let's talk about predictions for a second. I think that this next year, we're going to see a change with the government looking at cybersecurity and maybe the way that they embrace the community. In the past, it's been kind of, you have your federal, then you have your commercial. It hasn't necessarily been one group, but I think we're starting to see that blend. But I think the threats are getting a lot more critical, I guess. There's always been a threat against the infrastructure, but now we're seeing some actual activity around that. And I think that's putting the government on a bigger alert level.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I really feel like Jen Easterly, the director at CISA, like the way CISA has been going since she came there, I've never met her, but I feel like it's taken on her personality as far as the collaborative efforts. I'm also seeing, again, because like when something happens, information spreads. We have ISACs now, these information sharing analysis centers that are kind of industry focused or really specific niche focused. And, with the government involvement and stuff like that, I would like to see kind of a more coordinated, ISAC, like whatever, call it the CISA ISAC or the public-private sector ISAC, just a base, base threat intel thing. So things like Log4j, that's not really industry specific, but is important, can be communicated, knowledge shared, like these tools, this Log4j tool CISA released. I found out about it through a podcast on CISA series, and you'd already found it and run it in your environment and stuff like that. But that's me and you, and we're active, right? If you're a matrixed IT person who has security responsibilities, but it's not your main bag, you're not consuming this type of media on the regular. So these free tools that are highly effective aren't, you're not aware of them. And that's where I'm hoping that the government, this private partner, public partnership really shines, because reporting in, if you're a private sector company, that you received a ransom attack or a breach, so we can have metrics and numbers, is good for long-term strategic direction and investment, but it doesn't help you today. And when your pants are on fire, you're looking for a bucket of water today. You don't want the idea of like, we're going to bring in an aqueduct and irrigation up in here. It's like, my pants are on fire, dude. Help me now. So I really feel like that's going to be the real value. And there's going to be a ton of private sector support for that, frankly, because there's value to the private sector. I always felt like that's the big, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm starting to get all frothy and rant here, but I feel like that's always been the challenge, is that the public sector is just like dictating things without really accounting for the private sector or delivering value to the private sector. The NIST cybersecurity framework was a really good first piece of work where it was, collaborative and stuff like that, but it's still not immediate value. And we're starting to see that. And I think that's why the private sector is now going to start latching on and wanting to get in the boat and row in the same direction.
Yeah, I think one of the tools that I played with that the government produced, NSA put out GITA, reverse engineer tool. And I remember when it first came out and everybody was kind of hesitant. A lot of security researchers were like, I don't know about that. Where's this information going? Let's take a look at this tool. But they were actually trying to help. So
Yeah.
I think that slowly but surely, I think they're going to integrate themselves. There was a pushback at first because, security researchers are infamous for being paranoid of the government because of what we do and how we do it. But I think that's slowly going to change. But as far as threats go, I sat down and thought about this a lot in the past 6 months about where we're going and what we're about to face. And looking at the type of threats that we've ran into this year alone, and some of the APT and some of the politically driven attacks like Cuba getting into the infrastructure. I hate to say it, but I think this upcoming year is going to be a very politicized, very politic-based threat landscape. With you have Russia and on the border of the Ukraine, which could go any way. You have China trying to take over Taiwan. You have Cuba being accused of their whole LRAD and that Havana syndrome. So with all those political events, and I've tried to explain this on the podcast over the past couple of months, is that a lot of the security breaches we see, a lot of cybersecurity issues we run into are politically driven. They're not just attacks. They're not just after money. A lot of it is a political statement. And I think 2022 is going to be the year of the political statement. And I think the infrastructure as a whole, the entire infrastructure is a huge risk with all the political tension going on. And not to mention our own issues with politics internally. I think the temperament and the pulse of the people just within the US has become so polarized, and people are ready to jump up and riot or protest or, hack into systems or breaches. So I think that's what we're going to run into this year. And, I hope we're able to handle the amount of stress that's about to come through those different pain points. Because you're looking at almost every major red country right now has tensions with the U.S. as far as politically and cyber. So I think we're about to face a storm this year.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. And, while you're saying it, it just makes me think, again, I'm not a geopolitical expert. I just, read the news or whatever. But, if with Russia focusing on Ukraine as much as they are this second, and China focusing on Taiwan as much as they are this second, and some of the work they're doing relative to their own population is taking a lot of, I would imagine, right? This is speculative, but if, having run an information security program, if you only have so many people and resources and you're dedicating them to look internally and to look at Ukraine or, whatever, when that project is complete or that mission objective is achieved, your resources free up and you move them on to the next project, which might align with what you're predicting for 2022 around, okay, now that we've, solidified the base, let's look at the adversarial space and disrupt that. One way, I guess to kind of nicely segue to one of the projections that I have, and if anyone who knows me listening to this knows that I make this every year, but I swear this is the year. I do think that a deepfakes related attack relative to a political entity will be a factor this year that we'll be talking about, whether it's, whatever, insert whatever political figure you want, doing some backdoor shady deal, or two adversarial figures, like let's say, Putin and Biden, right? Or, who are Putin and Trump, like pick whichever side you want and then choose the other, having a back alley handshake or whatever, fraudulent papers, because yeah, the investigation might prove downstream that it was fraudulent. The papers were fraudulent, the emails fraudulent, the deep fake was fraudulent. But when people see it, we're like a media driven group, and video is like the medium that people love to consume. TikTok, Instagram, all these things. So something like that, if done well, could spread like wildfire and cause some serious issues. Again, it could get remedied quickly, but the impact while the match head is catching the magnesium or whatever, or the sulfate, that's where the burn is. So I do think the deep fake stuff, it's getting better. It's getting much better. it is easy to detect, which is nice, but you need tools. You can't detect it with the naked eye. So the human can't detect it. Technology can. So put me down for deep fakes, Mike.
It's funny you say that because this morning I was watching the news and I was watching the Today Show, and they had a guy on there that looked somewhat similar to Tom Cruise. And he and a graphic artist from Europe somewhere, I want to say Sweden, um, did this deep fake, and they're on TikTok. And he acts like Tom Cruise, he talks like Tom Cruise, and with the computer graphics, you can't tell the difference. And they were going over deep fake and how easy it is now as opposed to before. So before they were saying, oh, it used to take months to get this level of deep fake. Now it's taking like a number of days. So it's a huge, I guess, step for deep fake, but it also is a scary step. And I don't know if you've seen. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, obviously the Putin, Biden, Trump thing is clearly like an easy one, but business email compromise is where we make money, or we being a threat actor, they make money with business email companies. Hey, Mike, it's the CEO. I'm going to get on a plane. I need you to kind of check for $2 million to Jerry Enterprises, and they need it done before 5 o'clock because the deal's going to fall through. Okay, that email might be sniffed out as fraudulent. I've educated my end users. If it is a video recorded Zoom meeting of me, the CEO of the company, pissed off and telling you to do something, you're going to do it because why would your eyes deceive you? And I think that also could be a real, I don't know if it would be reported or not, but that could be a very real attack scenario as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen deepfake examples as far as Europe goes, and especially in Russia. I saw a couple deepfakes that were actually videos and put different people in different places at different times that they weren't supposed to be there. And it just by the naked eye, like you say, you can't really tell. But once they dove into it and dissected it and looked at the different parts, then yeah, you can tell. But in the heat of the moment, nobody's going to sit down and take that stuff apart and do the analysis before they react to a video. I mean, it's going to be right then and right there. Another great movie to watch, and people laugh, but I watched this the other day and it was really, really good. Was called Don't Look Up, and it was sort of a satire on our politics, our media, and an extraterrestrial threat as far as like a comet. But some of the things that they were talking about, the way they portrayed the media, like you said, we're a media-driven company or country, and if the media says it, most of the world buys into it and jumps right on that bandwagon. I think that's a big threat too, is getting that media machine moving in the wrong direction. But as far as other threats go, I definitely think that we're going to see some geopolitical issues with technology. I don't think supply chain threat is going to go anywhere. I think that's going to, keep going down the same course. But I do see a switch in not so many large companies being attacked, but more small to medium businesses being attacked. The increase I've seen over the past 6 months for SMBs is just astronomical. And I don't know the solution for that because they're not losing enough money for the government to really take hold and take a look. But in the same token, these smaller and medium businesses are getting shut down. And those are the people that are your vendors, your smaller vendors, also play a part in supply chain. And like we've seen through the US, food supply and gas and all that, and especially with shipping, that threat is still going to maintain too. I think that maritime threat is going to be increased exponentially this year too.
Yeah, well, I mean, was it NotPetya when that knocked out Merck in like 2017 or something? I mean, that was a nightmare. That was a logistics and shipping nightmare. You think of just like your Amazon package is a day late. Yeah, that's fine. But when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of shipping containers, it's real logistics, right? With cranes and trucks and coming and going and manifests and all that stuff. So yeah, it can be quite dramatic. One area that I haven't really. I want your thoughts on this, Mike. One area that I think is going to be very juicy target and see a lot of threat activity is in Web3 or Meta, right? So when I think about how threat actors think, and I'm by no means that bright, right? I'm more of a conformist than anything, but when I try to think about it, I always say follow the money, right? So crypto came out and people started hacking wallets, hacking exchanges, all these things, and now Meta's coming out and we're seeing people buy $650 million whatever digital yachts. NFTs are huge, and I get that NFTs are unique, so you can't really steal them, but I just think with the way that we're pushing into this virtual reality, immersed reality kind of life, that it's just, there's going to be money there. There's going to be transactions there, whether it's US cat or, currency cash or in-game currency or whatever. I don't know yet, but I just think that if there's value to something in there and people haven't quite figured out how it works or how to secure it or how to operate it correctly, then it's going to be a target for attackers to investigate, to prod, to push, and to ultimately commit fraud.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you look at Second Life and some of the other online games, those have been a target for attackers since day one. Anything that has any kind of in-game monetization or actual dollar value, they've been going after. And look at the early days of like PlayStation Network and stuff like that. They've always been a target as well. So you're right. I mean, anything that you can monetize, whether it be digital or not, especially digital, because you look at some of the games that kids play and the ability to buy things within the game. And since I was young and since my son was young, I would watch people hijack people's accounts and steal all their money through their account. And it may be digital currency, but I mean, the effect it has on the gameplay and the quality of service and actually, the confidence of the players, it changes. But the big push with NFTs, like that still amazes me. Like it just, it blows my mind. There was someone on Twitter this morning that I guess she got on Twitter and found out that her image had became an NFT, and she was pretty pissed off about it. Like, I want this removed immediately. And I don't understand the big push towards that, because I know that's the route that we're going as far as currency goes. I know the dollar can't last forever, and we're starting to see some of the instability with the U.S. currency already. But I don't necessarily think virtual or crypto is the way to go. There's just way too many problems with it. And not only that, but you look at the sanctions we put on foreign countries like Iran and China, and what's the first thing they do when we put sanctions on? They run to crypto and start breaking crypto wallets and mining crypto. There's a big operation in China that was shut down last year, where there was multiple servers involved, and of course the people in China that were responsible went to jail. But everybody runs to crypto when the currency gets when there's an issue with the currency or the instability starts. And I think that's another area that we really need to look at as far as cybersecurity goes, is the blockchain. I mentioned this before, if the FBI can do it, anybody can. I mean, we all know that they have some talented people on their cyber team. I've interviewed a couple on the show, but they always come to security researchers to help them figure out the hard problems. So if the FBI can get in without help, then we're all in trouble as far as blockchain goes, for sure.
Yeah. I have another prediction that I think is more of a positive light. It is a threat, but one that I think everybody's going to really enjoy. I think 2022 is the year that passwords die. Like, by and large, I think we're going to be passwordless in January 23. Yeah. So with Microsoft Windows Hello for Business, they've made this massive adoption push, especially in Windows 11, for this non-password authentication mechanism, and they've offered several. Right, with you've got the phone number, the text message, which were all traditional, biometric. Now they've got one where you can have a picture that you choose and you touch it in different places. All these things that are much more secure in regards to a password being compromised, and easier for end users, which who doesn't like that? And it's just, everything about it is really positive. And I think once we have the infrastructure and technology in place to support the passwordless authentication schemes at a scale that is warrants, or not warrants, but at a scale that supports the load of the customer base for whatever it is, and its widespread adoption, then I think we'll do it. There'll still be like, Windows XP machines in manufacturing sites and stuff that just it'll be legacy tech. But I think for like your cloud solutions and your main operating system and stuff like that will be passwordless, and we'll all love it. Like our kids won't even understand why we use passwords. Like that doesn't even make sense.
Right. I totally agree. But do you think that going passwordless is going to end up taking us down the road of facial recognition and biometrics?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, there's always a trade-off, and I always kind of get like wrapped around the axle as far as how I feel about this with privacy and invasion of privacy versus convenience, right? So like I own an iPhone and I can use my face to unlock it, and the biometric print is inside the phone, right? But that doesn't mean it can't be pulled out by Apple. And then ultimately, I don't know if this is where you're going, but government surveillance and widespread surveillance, and then like complete erosion of privacy. I do think that's the case, but I mean, there's other options besides biometrics. It's just that biometrics is so difficult, not impossible, but with FIDO2 compliance, it's very difficult to compromise or fraudulently replicate. And it's super convenient because you never forget your face. Like you never leave your thumb in the car. You know what I mean? Like you don't accidentally leave your palm print at the hotel room. Like it's with you. You've always carrying it. And that level of convenience is fantastic. And if you're, whatever, you're had a couple too many beers and you got to pay the Uber driver, like, yeah, you might not remember like how to unlock the app to get to the multi-factor token or which picture you did. You could put your thumb on it and do it. Now, of course, that can be defeated or taken advantage of, right? So you pass out and your buddy then pays for his Uber with your thumb. These are some of the, trade-offs, but I just think our society is all about convenience, and end users specifically want the easiest path to complete their task. Their task is not to authenticate. Their task is to get payroll done or to make widgets or whatever. They don't care about that. You're just impeding their ability to get to what they need to do. And if that road can be smoother with fewer obstacles, then that's the road that the adoption is going to support and drive to, especially the business. Once the executives get a taste of passwordless, it's over.
Yeah, I agree too. But I do think that if the company that goes in that direction and starts leading us down that path happens to be one of the big three, let's say Google or Amazon or Meta, we're all in trouble. And it goes the same as AI. So I was talking to Max Hermeyer about this not too long ago. And I think that as a civilization, we're ready for something like that. But I do think that if it's created and maintained and harnessed by the wrong people, then it could be hugely detrimental to the whole planet. That again, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Facebook did when they were like basically unregulated, ungoverned with all of that data, and they immediately monopolized it, and then secondary sources like Cambridge Analytica were able to weaponize it. And they didn't become the top 3 richest companies in the world because they weren't doing stuff like that. So I don't know how you would control it. You know what I mean? It's people, righteous people can have righteous decisions, but they are a private company that's driven by financial revenue. They can have a community outreach program and fair practices department, but at the end of the day, they're a publicly traded company with a responsibility to shareholders to make as much money as possible. And if that's an asset, I don't see how they couldn't. And, so we'll see with all this Oculus Quest 2 VR stuff. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time before you put the damn thing on and it scans your eyes and you're in as whatever.
Yeah. Especially like, I know China has been like really cutting edge when it comes to facial recognition. But again, I don't know if I would trust their motives when it comes to producing, equipment or content based on facial recognition. So this upcoming year, you have the podcast, you have all the stuff that you do. What's in store for Gerald with these things in 2022?
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. I'm pretty excited. Actually, one of the early projects for 2022, I'm almost done working on it, is I'm developing an online course that, I've been doing Simply Cyber and helping people, and, I do webinars and stuff like that. But I've been asked so many times, like, where do I get training for red? Well, go do this. There's a million options. How do I get training for blue? Oh, well, you're lucky because in the last 18 months, several platforms have cropped up. And then they ask, where do I get training for GRC? And I never have a good answer. I always say, you can read NIST, but it's more of a reference than a training manual. But that's the best I got. And finally, one of these times I said, Jesus, I just, like, I have 15 years of GRC experience. I should just make a course that helps people. So I'm almost done with this practical GRC analyst course. And basically it's broken into several sections, like a risk section, a security awareness section, a governance compliance, a little bit of a cybersecurity primer, and then how to get a GRC analyst job at the bottom. But the nice thing is with each of the content pieces, like security awareness or compliance or whatever, there's the theory of what you need to know about the job and how it really operates in a professional setting. But then I have a lab section, which I think is kind of groundbreaking for GRC, frankly. And it's a lab section where we're going to actually do something like we're going to audit the AC family in a NIST 853 control framework. And this is like, these are the tools I would use when I do an audit, and here's how you would capture that. And then after you complete the practical lab module, you would get to it anyways, but you unlock like a couple resume bullets that you can copy and paste directly into a resume because you literally have just achieved that skill doing that lab. And I've got one for security awareness, one for compliance, one for audit, one for risk. And those are the modules really. And I just think it's going to unlock some opportunity for people who want to understand, whether they're new to the field or they're trying to get out of blue because they don't like working on holidays. Like, here is a primer on the core fundamentals of GRC. Like, if you go get a GRC analyst job, these are the things they're going to ask you to do. So here you go. So that's coming out probably in like, I'm going to do some beta testing in early January and then probably release it in early February. And I'm pretty excited about it. That's one of the bigger projects. And then, just Simply Cyber, I just started recently doing a daily morning cybersecurity news briefing that has been really well received. That's different than most of the Simply Cyber stuff I do, which is like live streams on Thursdays and weekly produced videos of core concepts on Mondays. So yeah, it's been good. It's all organic though. I couldn't have told you last year for predictions that I would have done first things first this year, but it seemed like the right thing to do at this time.
Yeah, I think that once you start like content creation and content development, it kind of takes on a life of its own, and this has been going on for a year. The Haunted Hacker's been going on for a year. We haven't changed a whole lot over the year. I think that, I like the same format. We used to have a lot of people on in the audience. We used to have an audience when we record, but I found that too distracting, too disturbing sometimes. So with this, it's more intimate and it's more of a discussion between, friends and just, kind of relaxed. But for me, this upcoming year is going to be kind of exciting as well. That I've been doing content creation for Alyssa Knight, and I have a screenplay that I wrote called Ransom, and it's going to be out in January or February, I believe, early next year. And we're doing short films for advertising for companies. So instead of your commercial or your brochures, companies are starting to buy these short films, these 10-minute films. And that's what we're doing, is we're creating this content for companies, which is really cool.
Yeah, I had someone send me the trailer to Ransom just yesterday and asked me to review it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I was really surprised when she asked me, and I'm kind of a fish out of water when it comes to screenplay writing. I've never written anything. I've never gone to that level of development, but I try to push the envelope and try to push myself. I think 2022, I'm going to be doing more of that. Really trying to dive off into different areas and learn more. I don't know about you, but I tend to get stagnant sometimes, where I get complacent, where I'm okay with just hacking, or I'm okay with just podcasting. And I think it's time for me as an individual to kind of step out and take some risk and learn some new stuff. So, I mean, as far as Gerald goes and the industry, what is your end goal? I mean, everybody asks me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I still haven't
Yeah.
quite figured that out yet. But I know that I'm on the road that I enjoy, and obviously you are too, because listening to your podcast and watching your shows, like your people love you, and you're super excited about doing it. Do you see that changing or developing into something new?
Yeah, the Simply Cyber community is a fantastic community. I really love those guys. No, so I've been a practitioner, more of a traditional route, like, went to a computer science education and then came out and did some technical stuff and then, worked my way up through GRC. And now I run my own security program. That was always like the career goal, was to run my own program. And I never really thought about Simply Cyber before I started creating it. But I've really, I feel like I've really kind of achieved a lot of the professional goals I had, in which is good because I love cybersecurity, and I got a PhD and stuff. So like I've really consumed as much as I can, and there's still so much that I don't know. Like there's tons and tons that I just don't know, which is my favorite part about cybersecurity because there's always something to learn. But I really want to. Simply Cyber went from like a hobby to like a regular thing to now something that has like people who I feel I don't want to say depend on me, but have expectations and look like, I don't want to say I lead them, but like I provide a service to the community, and I take that role quite seriously. So I'd like to continue, honestly. Like we'll see where Simply Cyber goes. I know I've got some. We didn't get into all the details, but I've got some things lined up. Some great guests for the live stream. I might increase the live streams from once to twice a week. I'd really like to do some more series type content where it's like, okay, let's do PNPT, right? For example. And like, I just don't have the time to properly edit it and piece it together. But like, okay, so we're going to go through PNPT, but that requires us to go through all of TCM's training. So let's do the OSINT course together. And then it's like more of a longitudinal multi-episode mini series that kind of stands on its own as a season. But I'd love to do that in addition to maintaining the morning daily cybers and these live streams and stuff like that. I might actually pare back on my Monday produced videos because the community does love that, but it's a lot of time to produce a video versus a live stream. And I feel like if I did them every other week, I'd have more time to dig into some other projects, maybe add an extra live stream a week and be able to do one a week and then still have 2 produced videos a month. So I'm kind of playing with the format. But as far as the long-term goal goes, I haven't really thought whether or not like I'd want Simply Cyber to be my full-time job or, leave practice or anything like that. But I'm just, it's so cliche to say I'm taking it one day at a time, but like it is very organic. It's all mine. So I get to decide, when I work, how I work, what I work on, which is really, really therapeutic for me. Because I get to dive into whatever, like Log4j happened, right? Like I need to know about it to do my own job. So let's just spend all day Saturday learning about it, spin up the Spring Boot, roll and roll app, use John Hammond's tool, ding, look at it, cool. And then why not share this knowledge with some people who may not be able to technically set up the Spring Boot and get a VM going? Like, it's easy if you know how to do it, but if you don't, it's hard. So why not make that for someone else? And I just really enjoy that. So I'm hoping Simply Cyber continues to grow and organically develop in ways that both delivers value to the community and makes me happy, and my personal life too. I do have a family and wife and children that I do enjoy spending time with, and it all has to flow together. It's got to be very Tai Chi-ish,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I tend to find myself doing 3 or 4 recordings a week, and then wearing myself down. I don't think at this point I could even have a family with my schedule. And balance is not something I'm very good at. So I try, and it's really important for people who listen that you definitely have to have some sort of balance or you burn yourself out pretty
Yeah.
quick. But yeah, any last thoughts before we go? And I really appreciate you being on. This has been a pleasure as usual. And I always love just picking your brain. Like, I look up to you in the community, and I know a lot of other people do as well. So it means a lot to have you on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. Yeah. I love being on the show. I love talking with you. It's always like a very intelligent, thoughtful conversation that really, getting other people's perspective in the field is always important to really putting your own perspective, not just challenging your own perspective, but giving you context to think differently so you can see a situation, a scenario, a problem, a threat, whatever, from multiple angles and not just, putting all your biases in. I guess I would just say, for the upcoming year, since that was kind of the focus of our conversation, I'm starting to see a lot of people posting on LinkedIn about I just got this job, I just got this job. So I'm hoping that, I don't know if it's budgets coming out or people getting more serious about cybersecurity, or all the work that people have been doing in 2021 to set themselves up for success in 2022 is beginning to pay dividends. But I guess I'm just hoping that all the work that people have been putting in is really turning into work and jobs and the networking and all that. I mean, I met you through networking, and I'm very glad I did. And I'm seeing a lot of people listen to that guidance, because a lot of people like yourself and myself and other people in the industry, that's what they're saying. You need to network. You need to contribute. You need to listen. You need to be part of what's going on. And I'm seeing people do that. And I really think that, it's not just us listen to ourselves speak. It's sage advice that's truly, taking effect.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. And yeah, definitely not listen to myself. As a matter of fact, I don't even listen to my podcast after they're recorded. I can't stand the sound of my own voice. So a lot of people don't know that. But thanks again for being on the show. And you and your family have, happy holidays, what's left of it. And I hope you prosper and you have good luck in 2022. And we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I'll have you on Simply Cyber.
Awesome. Thanks, Gerald. Have a good one, man.
All right. Cheers. Bye.